Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this sneak preview of The Raven's Nest. I'm Raven, and starting in January of 2020, I hope to be your host and guide on a journey from one end of the cosmos to the other. My goal in taking you on this journey is to provide an alternative perspective for understanding our time in cosmic history. If you've had the opportunity to meet me in person, or have visited the Cosmic Beacon Patreon site, you've probably heard about the Cosmic Coup Project. As the General Secretary to the project, I developed this program as the platform for expressing the various principles and goals of the project. I've been working on this project for about a year now, but soon after I began writing down what I believed it all to be, I realized that I'd really been working on the project my entire life. Rather, I should say that my entire life was dedicated to this project long before I took my first breath. What triggered the idea for the Cosmic Coup Project was a personal experience I had had with a family member a year before I began writing down the basic outline. This experience with my family member was, from start to finish, a final preparation for the work that would become the project. And since it was a time of preparation, it was also a time of tremendous struggle and upheaval, both physically as well as spiritually. To be quite frank, I think God just needed to be certain I was really ready to confront powers that far exceed my own. More than anything, though, I think He needed me to be certain in my own heart that I was ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. This was not the first time I had been confronted with the idea of personal sacrifice, so I was already familiar with the direction my life was beginning to take here in the second half of it. I don't share this with you in any lightness of spirit, because for the project to succeed, I must remain obedient to God's will. If I don't, then I fail, and the project fails. And much to God's disappointment, I'm sure, my end will have no good meaning. And as my mortal father said to me once, "Son, the true meaning of your life is hidden in your death. So die good, son. Die good." The broad strokes for the project were laid out to me back in February of this year. As with all the revelations I've received in my life, this one followed a lonely, dark night in which I was tormented over a heavy question concerning yet another family member. This time, my mother. My mortal mother is not long for this world. Now, before I go on, I need you to understand that my mother is a woman who has experienced a high degree of physical and emotional trauma. Through forces and agents that she had no power over, my mother's heart and her humanity are stained with a darkness that has left her cold, distant, and seemingly unreachable. I never formed a permanent bond with the woman, and in spite of the horrifying darkness that stains my own heart, I had to date not been willing to admit that I had no love for this woman at all. And this proved to be a crisis of conscience far beyond my own ability to resolve. But the crisis went beyond whether or not I could find any love for her in my heart. You see, I've had almost no contact with my mother for over 2 decades. So, as I found myself confronted with her looming departure for destinations unknown, I also found myself wanting for an answer concerning what, if anything, I should do about it. Should I try and make contact? What would I say or do if I did? What does she want? And how can I know that if I don't make contact? The torment became unbearable, and I found myself in bed at 3 a.m., wallowing in a pool of my own pity and perspiration. Finally, after hours of spiritual upheaval, I surrendered myself to the inevitable. I surrendered to the one question that is really the only rational question a human being can ask regarding any and all matters of human affairs. But it is a question that in my own narcissism, I'm just not that comfortable in asking. The question I surrendered to was, God, what do you want me to do? Now allow me to be clear about something here. I am many things, some by default of programming and some by default of nature. What I am not by either programming or nature is humble. And so for an individual such as I am to surrender his will to the will of any other power, regardless of source, nature, or even potency, there must be a catalyst of some great and obvious significance. And on this particular occasion, the catalyst that brought me to my knees was simply the long overdue acknowledgement that there is no love to be found in my heart for this woman who delivered me into this world of darkness. I should also note that a certain and not so insignificant amount of stubbornness was at play here as well. You see, as a warrior, surrender is anathema to every fiber of my being. To admit defeat, let alone accept it, is an act of utter humiliation for me. But apparently, this is exactly what I needed at the time. This humiliation was necessary to pave the way for the answer I was about to receive. And that answer came in two parts. First, a preface, and then a plan. For me personally, the preface has had as much meaning as has the plan that followed. Now remember, the question was, God, what do you want me to do? The preface to the answer was this: I assure you, you're not going to like it. It would take another podcast to explain why this preface came as little surprise to me. Suffice it to say that I've liked very little of what has been my life. I just needed to be reminded that everything that was about to follow was not intended to serve me personally. And so, when the plan of the Cosmic Coup Project was laid out before me, and it became clear to me what my role in the project is, admittedly, my first thought was, you're right, I don't like this at all. Of course, immediately following that thought was a very loud and clear, yes, but you're going to do it anyway. So, just exactly what is the Cosmic Coup Project? For now, I'm just calling it a 21st century counter-revolution in human spirituality, consciousness, and life. But what does all of that really mean? I mean, one of the obvious questions that should present here is, why is a counter-revolution of any kind even necessary? This is an excellent question, and one that demands a high degree of comprehensive attention. For now, though, I think it's safe to assume that most of us are all at least superficially aware that we as a society are currently experiencing some rather revolutionary events, and that the landscape ahead is looking pretty rugged, and maybe even a little uncharted. I'm calling it a counter-revolution because it's my contention that a global revolution in human spirituality, consciousness, and life is already underway, and I personally don't like the direction I see it going. To be a little more precise in my assessment of our times, humanity is at the threshold of great systemic change that will, and is already, affecting every living and non-living thing on, below, and above the earth. Systemic change of the type and magnitude we are currently experiencing is really nothing new to the cosmos, or to this little blue and green planet rocketing its way through it. It only seems so strange and ominous because the cycle of time that this type of systemic shift occurs within is greater than that of the average human life. In fact, it's a cycle of time that encompasses generations of human life. Changes of the magnitude, such as the ones we are now witnessing, occur only once every 2 or 3 generations, if even that. because of this, and in conjunction with humanity's propensity to forget even the most recent of history, when change of such seismic magnitude does occur, humanity finds itself lacking the necessary historical and experiential memory to place such events in their proper context. Without proper context, even the smallest of changes within society can seem and often do become overly chaotic. And this is what I find to be at the heart of today's global chaos. Whether it is the election of Donald Trump, fears of a civil war in this country, a China rising to power in the East, or a dark specter of destruction looming over the global financial system, what society is lacking in our attempt to respond to the chaos of our time is the proper context of our present moment in cosmic history. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the overarching aim of the Cosmic Coup Project, to remind humanity of the cosmic context in which we have been placed and the purpose for which we were created to serve in the grand cosmic play of life. Of course, I expect this will be no easy task. To begin with, I believe that humanity is not only ill-prepared for what lay just over the horizon, but entirely ill-informed about it as well. Now, I shall not mince words here. After having spent much of my life studying the dark arts of disinformation, it is clear to me that humanity is currently living life under a hypnotic spell, being cast upon it by forces and agents it does not understand and is often entirely unaware of. I also understand that the human ego is such that it will often commit suicide before admitting it has been deceived. I'm well aware of how destructive a suicidal ego can be. What concerns me most is the real possibility that humanity is currently standing at the dark threshold of a collective ego suicide. And then there is the matter of power. If humanity has lost anything of itself, and I argue that it has lost almost its entire self, I would have to argue first and foremost that humanity has lost, nay, surrendered, its natural and inherent power to a master who cares not for humanity's survival. I believe this to be the root of the matter, regardless of the matter at hand, because quite frankly, all matter must have power. Now, I'll skip the quantum and holographic physics explanation born out of some advanced system theory that supports that last statement. My point is this: without power, nothing lives. Without power, nothing exists. If you don't believe me, then just tune in to the public discourse of our day. I'm confident it won't take you that long to see that at the root of today's discourse is a series of yet to be fully answered questions about power. You've likely already asked many of them yourself. My contention here should be obvious. If humanity is searching for answers to questions about power, then humanity has lost its power, or at least a knowledge of it anyway. The Cosmic Coup Project claims that power is the contextual basis for all human affairs. Not only that, the project also believes that power is the overarching contextual basis of the entire cosmos. One of the first objectives of the project is to lay out before you the evidence we believe supports these claims. But this is only a beginning. Once this cosmic context has been firmly established, the real work of the project begins. And exactly what is that work? Well, it's twofold, actually. First, the Cosmic Coup Project is a work of restoration, and second, it is a work of preparation. Through the three components of the project, the Cosmic Coup Consortium, the Cosmic Beacon, and the Red Sea Initiative, the project seeks to offer restoration, research, education, development planning, and community advocacy services that we believe are needed in order to restore the natural balance of power within the domains of human life. In closing this episode, I would like to highlight what I think distinguishes the Cosmic Coup Project from all other efforts to respond to the systemic changes that are already dominating and will continue to dominate the landscape of human societies for at least the next decade. Context. Yes, the simple difference is context. The Cosmic Coup Project asserts power should be the context for humanity's response to the events of the coming years. I understand that this particular context may not seem as prescient to you now as it does to me. This was expected and is why the Cosmic Beacon is hard at work preparing the materials to properly set this context going forward. Through social media channels like this one, as well as live public information presentations, the project seeks to engage with both individuals and communities by challenging them to take back the power they have surrendered. But the project won't stop there. We understand that it is easy to lay down a challenge. What's hard is to overcome one. That's where the project will really go to work. It's simply not enough to accurately point out and understand what our problems are. Yes, action is desperately needed, no doubt. But what kind of action is going to lead humanity out of its present darkness? I don't pretend to know all the answers, unlike many of the other talking heads currently polluting the public discourse airwaves. Here's what I do know, however. Doing the same thing over and over, decade after decade, all the while expecting life to change, is pure insanity. How can we expect our political system to improve when we continue to elect the same politicians cycle after cycle? How can we expect to secure a prosperous future for our children whilst we continue to rape the prosperity of the future for the fulfillment of our own present selfish desires and pleasures? How can we preserve and protect human freedom, liberty, and dignity when every day we selfishly sacrifice all of them on the altars of comfort and convenience? The simple answer to these questions is that humanity on the whole must do something different than what it's been doing for far too long. We have to change. But where do we begin to make that change? Simple. The one and only place where all change in life begins, with oneself. And for me, that personal change is to become a naturally restorative force in the lives of others. I assure you, this change is a vast departure from the all too unnatural and destructive life of my past. And that's it. That is the global mission statement of the Cosmic Coup Project. Become a naturally restorative force within humanity. Now, if this sounds like a noble and worthwhile mission to you, then I invite you to learn more about the Cosmic Coup Project by subscribing to this channel. You can also become a supporting member of the project by joining us at the Cosmic Beacon's Patreon site. The link is in the banner at the top of the page. I have no doubt that to meet its objectives and succeed in its global mission, the Cosmic Coup Project will need to be a massive and historic undertaking. But on that note, I would like to close by reminding everyone what the American Revolution teaches us about the quality and quantity of human power necessary to change the world. Only a few are needed, but those few must prove to be of the highest character and humility. And above all, these few who would change the world must understand and personally accept that the tree of life and liberty must, from time to time, be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots. Until next time, this is Raven, signing off.